Hello, my lovely anatomists. Michelle Glass here, and thank you for joining me for a video series on reproductive system. I think it's important before we get started on our lab work to actually define what we mean by biological sex. So here, of course, we're not talking about the act of intercourse, but rather we're talking about whether a human is male, female, or intersex. When we talk about biological sex, it's important to note that it's a combination of several factors. So it is important to see that sex is determined by our chromosomes. This is in part talking about our sex chromosomes. Are you having XX chromosomes, XY chromosomes, or some other combination? This is also talking about genes. So we're not memorizing these, but there are at least 25 genes that are involved in the development of our gonads, of our reproductive system. Sex hormones are going to be another important factor in determining sex. So this is talking about whether your body is producing estrogens, progesterone, testosterone, but also about our cells and how they respond to those hormones. So in some bodies, you might be producing estrogen, but the cells are not able to respond to estrogen. And then the third component of biological sex has to do with anatomy. So this is both the visible external genitalia as well as the internal anatomy. This is all important to pay attention to because very often we are assigning either a male sex or female sex to our infants based on just that one visible external genital piece. And clearly, it's much more complicated. Humans can then come in or be classified as male sex, female sex, or intersex. Intersex is pretty rare. It's 1% of our population. So that does mean 99% of humans are falling into the binary of male sex or female sex. But when we realize that in 2021, we have almost 8 billion humans on the planet, then that gives us, almost 80 million intersex humans sharing our space. I have this great article for you called Sex Redefined, and I will link for you that article in your video description. Just in case you have a question, it is important to pay attention that gender is different than sex. So sex, remember, we're talking about biological sex, we're talking about your chromosomes and genes, we're talking about your hormones and your hormone receptors, we're talking about both your internal and your external anatomy. When we talk about gender, this is a highly personalized feeling about yourself or identity of yourself. The dimensions of gender do include your body. So all of the conversation of sex, that's one piece of gender, but again, that's overly simplistic. In addition, dimensions of gender also include what we can call identity. So this is our internal sense of how we see ourselves. So again, that's that highly personalized piece. And then the third dimension of gender is described as expression. And this is more like how we present our gender out into the world. And so this might be talking about the way that an individual dresses or a way that an individual communicates or the types of jobs or toys or so forth, things that can be very genderized, right? And so this is where that expression piece comes into play. If this is a topic of interest to you, I have found genderspectrum.org to be a great resource. And so I will link to genderspectrum.org in the video description as well. All right, now stay tuned for some anatomy. And as always, take care of yourselves and each other.